ready yet, of course, but the park will open with the basic tour you're about to take. And then other rides will come online 6 or 12 months after that. Absolutely spectacular design, spared no expense.
And we can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it. And then there's the merchandise. And I can personally...
Donald, this park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Sure, they will. I mean, what, we'll have a coupon day or something.
Yes.
Gee, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little bit different than you and I had feared.
Yeah, I know. They're a lot worse.
Now, wait a second. Now, we haven't even seen the part where
Donald, let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear every viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here? Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have anything to say.
No, hold on. This isn't some species that was obliterated by deforestation or the building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction.
I simply don't understand this Luddite attitude, especially from a scientist. I mean, how can we stand in the light of discovery and not act?
Oh, what's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrative act that scars what it explores. What you call discovery, I call the rape of the natural world.
Well, the question is, how can you know anything about an extinct ecosystem? And therefore, how could you ever assume that you can control it? And you have plants in this building that are poisonous. You pick them because they look good.
But these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary.
Dr. Grant, if there's one person here who could appreciate what I'm trying to do.
The world has just changed so radically, and we're all running to catch up. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look. Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you.
And that is our Joygasm featured moment of the week. Steve, what do you think about that particular scene?
Russ, you don't get very many well-scripted, give you goosebumps talking scenes like that anymore.
Yes.
You know? I mean, I'm glued to it. Everything everybody is saying, it makes sense, and I love the verbiage that they're using, and it's fantastic.
It really is. You know, this is the first time in a long time that I watched this particular scene, and I forgot just how intellectually stimulating it really is. I mean, when you listen to what each of those characters had to say, they were very well spoken, very well thought out. Each of them had like their own like points to make that were each valid and sound. And I don't know, in this day and age, it really is refreshing to have an adult, like listen in on an adult conversation that doesn't erupt into name calling or cussing or like just all. It's like, again, it's wonderful to be able to see something that really causes one to think.
Right.
And I think a lot of what they talked about, granted, this was a fictional story about Jurassic Park, but I think that some of the themes that they explored are completely relevant in today's world, especially with stem cell research and genetics, and like how they've been able to successfully clone, I think even humans at this point, I think is probably possible, even though they haven't come out and really advertised that, because I think there would be some sort of huge social outcry or outrage from it. But I think they've probably done it by now. And it's, I don't know. I think what's really cool about Jurassic Park as a movie is, on the one hand, it's like this action thriller, but on the other hand, they have multiple scenes like that talk about certain things that really give the viewer food for thought. And I really find myself appreciating scenes like that I don't know, like they excite me on a different level. They give me goosebumps in a different way. And especially with Jeff Goldblum's speech there. What did you think of what he had to say?
Well, we had a whole different Jeff Goldblum in that time. I mean, that's the Jeff Goldblum that we had like during the Fly days. And
sure.
He's become a little bit more quirky later on. But no, he played that part absolutely fantastic. And I love it. all his thoughts and his process and his civility. Like, he was trying to give other people time to talk. He knew he had a thought he needed to express, and an important one at that. And maybe he was thinking perhaps everyone is at this table, except for the lawyers, thinking the same thing, and I'm just the first to say it. But man, no, he hit it out of the park. I remember watching that in the theater, and I really didn't grasp it at the time. I was pretty young, and I remember Dad in the theater saying, "That was an excellent conversation." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't understand. I don't even know what was happening." And he goes, "No, when you're older, you'll understand." I'm like, okay.
Well, if you think about it, that film was released in 1993.
Yeah.
So that means that I was in 8th grade and you were in 6th grade.
93?
Yeah.
I thought I was in 5th.
Yeah. I mean, elementary school, but
Right.
I don't know. I think it's really, really neat to see. I think another perspective that I have regarding the film is I love the approach that they took with, especially with those earlier scenes where they pushed the idea that this was an amusement park that was on the verge of opening up. And so it was almost like we also got kind of a behind the scenes insider look as to how everything worked. And as a kid or a teenager or even an adult, when you think of the early 90s, we didn't have as much accessibility that we do today in terms of, like, if you want to find out about Universal Studios, or if you want to find out about Disneyland, you know, if you're curious about, like, say, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, you can go onto YouTube and they have, like, people who have videotaped the entire ride in its entirety. You have behind the scenes as to how they maintain the ride and how stuff works. I mean, there's just a lot that you can digest. But back in the early 90s, you really didn't have that. I mean, the internet itself was still in dial-up mode back in the day. Like, there was none of that information available. And so really the public only had access to the parks when they would go to them and then experience the rides. And I think that this was a very novel approach for the film, where it was able to present it in a way that gave us that backstage pass, so to speak. And I think as a result, it made the world more realistic and it made it more tangible. And I think even the conversations like the one that they just had there also gave a lot of realistic credibility to an otherwise heavy action thriller movie that had dinosaurs and whatnot. But I mean, the movie, the entire time, it was so realistic. One of the other things too I loved about that particular scene is how, when there was some kind of disagreement, like with the lawyer, for instance, who's essentially trying to shut Jeff Goldblum's character up, but then you had I can't remember the character's name, but basically the guy who owned the park,
Right.
he really said, no, I want to hear all viewpoints and I want to see what he has to say. And you know, again, it's so neat to be able to witness a conversation that's like that I could just sit there and just listen to them talk. And maybe like I don't agree with certain parties as much as I do with others, but still there's such an air of respect. And again, like the way that they approach the subject matter, I think that was one of the components to the secret sauce that made Jurassic Park super successful. I mean, of course, the first film was like gangbusters.
Well, the first film was the closest to the book too. And
did you read the Michael Crichton book?
I read I read Jurassic Park and I read The Lost World. And The Lost World as a book was a good book, but the movie didn't really follow it all too well. But this was really close. I mean, the entire feeling that I had reading the book was the same feeling I had watching the movie. It was that close. But when you listen to what everybody is expressing their viewpoints, at first you're thinking, yes, this is going to sell. I mean, who's not going to want to go pay big bucks to go see the dinosaurs? I would. It's $2,000. Okay, this is a once in a lifetime thing. No one has seen this in millions of these creatures in millions of years. Yes, I will go pay.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'd be fearing for my life because these things are hunters and they're huge and they're ginormous and they're very deadly and you're taking your life in your hands.
You touch on something that's actually I didn't even think about, but you brought this to my attention, so thank you about this.
Yeah.
One of the brilliant aspects that I give kudos to the script writers, whoever did the screenplay for this was a brilliant approach. And I'm kind of riding the coattails of what you just said. As a viewer, I just realized that as each character had their turn to tell whatever it is that they wanted to tell about their opinion or their angle on this whole thing, I found my opinion constantly in this organic state of updating to agree with that particular person. So like, to your point, like it started out with the lawyer talking about like how this is great, how this is awesome, we can charge whatever we wanted to do. And I'm thinking, yeah, man, I would totally pay top dollar to see dinosaurs in real life and how this is a huge success. And even in the film at that point in time, they hadn't actually seen the whole park. They just saw like just a little bit of it. But then as soon as it goes over to Jeff Goldblum's character, then all of a sudden I'm thinking, ooh, yeah, that's it does seem like it was rushed. Like there's more kind of like the business greed side of things, and not to mention the whole angle of how they were so quick. Again, one of the most iconic, famous lines from any movie in the history of film, that whole line of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that rings true in so many different scenarios. But then you go over to what's the female character's name? I know there's Dr. Grant, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, even though I was watching the scene. But they go to her, and she had some good lines too, just about the plants and how like you have 65 million years that supposedly are separating humanity from dinosaurs. And of course, Dr. Grant kind of went into more detail about that. But it was so cool to be able to like, as it kind of leapfrogged from person to person around that table. I mean, by the time it goes all the way around full circle, it was just funny how there was never any point of view that I was like ardently against.
You know that it was Hammond who was at the head of the table.
That's right. Yeah.
And his name is Richard Attenborough.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering, I'm just taking a wild stab in the dark here, but I'm wondering if he is related to, I think his name is David Attenborough.
I have no idea.
He's on the BBC. He narrates wildlife shows.
Okay.
Like Planet Earth, for example. And he does a great job. He's one of those people who can say very little, but express so much. And he's done lots and lots and lots of that. So anyway, it'd be funny if they were actually related, because one guy is doing the nature shows in real life, and then his brother does the Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs. And with I don't know. Anyway, I'm just drawing parallels.
Not a problem. You are listening to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. He is Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch, and we're just hoping that you're having an awesome day today on September 20th, 2019. Let me think here. I'm actually impressed that we are on episode 140, Steve.
I thought it was 137. Where have I been? I haven't been counting, apparently.
Oh, man. So we have quite a few things to discuss, although not too many. How about that? How was that for the old seesaw approach? We have a few gaming news tidbits that involve Apple and Anthem. And then we also have something for movie news as well that I don't want to give away at this point, but it has to do with The Princess Bride. All of you listeners out there have heard the story already, but if not, then you definitely need to continue listening. Our topic of the day is our Gears 5 reactions, which you can fast forward to if you look at the timestamps located in this episode's detailed section of iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Otherwise, just keep listening. So what is going on with you this past week, Steve?
Russ, I shaved the beard.
You did. And I must say, you look handsome.
Yeah.
Dashing even.
The old baby butt cheek face.
I'm
extra
telling you.
soft.
It's amazing what happens when you shave off some of the grays. You have all of a sudden rekindled more of your youth. But
Yes.
it's not like practical joke youth. It's more like, oh, he looks like he's like 30 years old again or 33.
Yeah.
Believe me, you want that the closer you get to 40.
Right. So that was fun and interesting. And let's see. So I got Game Pass. Oh, you know what I did? I went back on Game Pass. I was mentioning this last episode. I got, what is it called?
A rash.
I got Kingdom Come.
Oh,
I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
And I got Everspace.
nice.
That was that
yeah.
spaceship game we saw. Oh, yeah. And you know what I was thinking too? I know you have the South Park games, but I don't. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if those are available on Game Pass. I haven't searched for them.
You'll have to do a search. They have, I think, over 100 titles in there.
Yeah.
So, and if they don't, then hey, I've already beaten the Stick of Truth.
Hey.
You can start out with that one.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
I think I will. And you know what I watched? It was Mortal Engines. Did you see that one?
I never did. How was it?
So it's kind of a movie for the kids, but that's not a bad thing. I didn't really care to see it in the theater, but I still wanted to see it. I mean, it's, Peter Jackson. And it was nice to watch a movie with no cussing and no nudity and whatever. And it just
Come on, I know you like to see some boobs.
Yeah. So anyway, it's very lighthearted. Who's the actor from The Matrix? Who is also
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving is in it,
The man.
which is awesome. And yeah, no, I just had a great time with it. It's very colorful. They have these airships that are pretty cool, and it got me thinking what Peter Jackson could do. And what's his studio? It's
What a Digital?
yeah. What could they do with Star Wars? All them boys, all the New Zealand boys.
I don't know.
I would be very interested in what they could do with it.
I have no idea. You never know. They may have actually worked on the more recent Star Wars films. You have to look at the credits and see if they're in there.
I kind of doubt it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they did. I was watching this movie and all the little designs they had for the ships, and I thought, man, they just came out of this. Maybe I think there was maybe a book that was written on it, but anyhow, they came up with these ideas from scratch, and I thought all these ships are cool looking. It's like this kind of idea that they have where it's not. They're all not super powerful ships, but they're trying to make use of all the energy they have.
Right.
And so somehow they kind of are kites, but they have some jets on them to get them from point A to point B a little faster. Anyway, it was kind of cool. So I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, but it's not a great, terrific, but it was lighthearted.
Right on.
So I have a few more movies I got to watch. I've been sitting there collecting Dutch. So I might have a list to give you next time.
Well, I'm curious to hear what you think of Everspace, because I definitely want to check that out and see if it's as fun as it looks.
Well, I would have started it by now, but I was playing nothing but Gears 5.
As well you should, considering it's our topic of the day.
We were twitching. Okay, so I think you need to set the difficulty back a little bit, Russ.
I'll have you know I did.
Because
After that last bout, yeah.
Yeah, no, we spent like an hour and a half and we walked like 5 steps.
I will say though, that was still a lot of fun. Like, I mean, just it wouldn't have been fun if it was just myself,
right?
But playing with you in a co-op game like that, and just some of the comments that were made. I mean, there was one point where I just started to laugh.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Hysterically. I could not even see the screen. I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
But you kept a good aim.
Well, thank you.
It's
pretty easy when you have the boom shot. You just kind of
Yeah.
generally aim and fire, and the splash damage will take care of it. But
There you go. What about you? What have you been doing?
so I'm still making my way through Sekiro. I think last time I told you I had bested my foster father.
Right.
And I've been making it a little bit farther along in the Fountain Palace. And so it's been a lot of, again, it's great. I know that it's coming to an end here soon. I know there's still some left, as well as having some super hard bosses. I went back to the Hirata estate, and that was where my foster father reappears. Because you didn't see me play it. When I bested him the first time, he dropped this little bell from like his outfit. And this woman who's the doctor, Dr. Emma, gave it to me and said, "Oh, this fell off of him when you beat him. You know, maybe you can use it." This is actually a really cool component to Sekiro. They have a couple of instances where when you receive some kind of bell-oriented thing, you can ring it, and what happens is it stirs up a memory that is somehow connected to that item. So the first time you go to like Hirata Estate, for instance, this woman that you come across in the world gives this to you, and so you use it, and then you're able to gain perspective on this ancient memory. However, the memory itself is contained within the perspective of that person. So you're playing a level that's based, like you're going back in time and like revisiting a memory, and so you're playing an active role in that, but everything you see and interact with is dependent upon that person's perspective of what they recall from that memory. So what happened was that when I got the little bell thing that was left over from my foster father, I ring that bell and I'm taken back to Hirata Estate, only this time it's from his perspective. So then things are slightly different. They're slightly off, and then certain enemies that were there were no longer there. And then even when certain enemies see me, they even had dialogue like, "Whoa, I thought you were dead." You know, like there's just a lot of stuff that just puts a lot of puzzle pieces together. I found myself thinking about how cool it would be to actually have a game that would extrapolate that idea out. Because in this game, you only have it happen really twice. But I was thinking, man, it'd be so cool to have some kind of like detective-oriented game where, you know, it's still an action game and everything, but like you're somehow able to like go back into people's memories using some sort of tangible item, and then those are the levels as you go through. All the while you're putting the pieces together, and you know what started out as like a fragmented memory could then be constructed into something that has the vantage point of everybody, so then you get the true story. I don't know. I think that'd be a really novel approach. But anyway, that's kind of digressing off the game. I cannot beat my foster father in round 2. I can tell you. He's got a few new moves up his sleeve, and he's a lot more aggressive, if you can believe it, from the first time. So I'm doing my best to try and get past him. Once I do, I believe there are only 2 more huge boss fights in the game before I have to.
He's got the paddle and the belt this time.
Exactly, and he's a little salty about our first encounter. So aside from that, of course, I too have been playing Gears 5, had a blast playing with you on Twitch this past Wednesday as we were making our way. Thank you, by the way, for helping me past that wall of difficulty.
It was fun.
And after we had played that, I ended up, today actually, I put the difficulty back down to normal. I had it like 1 step above, and I ended up finding another wall where I was like, man, how on earth am I going to like get past this? So I'm like, okay, you know what? I just want to play through the game, and then I'll play it back through again on a higher difficulty. So I did that, and I was able to make my way along without giving any kind of like massive spoilers away on the show, can you generally describe kind of where you're at in the story?
I am at the last part, from what I can tell. I'm at the last part of that snow level.
Okay, so I'm not sure what the last part is.
So you take that skiff and you're looking around different spots.
Did that.
And you're doing small discoveries.
Yep.
There is some extra stuff you can do. There's a little question mark, little areas that you can find. And so I did all those, and so now I'm in the lab. You're supposed to get to the lab, and I found the lab.
Yes.
And
I'm in the lab as well.
right. And you're supposed to find this AI and discover something about the main girl's past, and
Right.
her connection with the Horde or whatever they're called.
Yeah, the Locust.
The Locust. And so something happens, and I won't tell you what it is, but you make a connection. Yeah. So now I am at that part, and it's hard, and I can't pass it. And I know what I need to do, but it takes patience.
So I think you are probably about 5 minutes ahead of me
No,
because
it's more than 5 minutes.
okay, because I'm following a certain someone around who's giving me a tour. There's a lot of exposition that's being revealed. I see a certain dossier on a certain someone, and yeah, I'm kind of at a point where I'm getting the feeling like
It's leading up to something.
it's leading up to something, and maybe I'm going to get betrayed or something like that by this little SOB. I'm not exactly sure. I just get this feeling like he's not to be trusted.
No.
No.
You can't trust a rolling TV with you.
Exactly.
Talks to you.
Now, so is that pretty close to where you left off?
I'm a little bit further on. Yeah, there's a couple more things that you have to do, but yeah, you're pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be fun to be able to sync up with you again, especially with the reduced difficulty, and just continue playing through that, because I had a blast playing with that with you. Finally, well, okay, let me back up just really, really quickly. I almost forgot. So going back to the Sekiro thing, there are 2 YouTube content creators who I have just been loving lately. I think I mentioned one of them to you before. His name is Fightin Cowboy. Have I told you about him?
Sounds familiar.
So he has been very helpful in just, he has these complete playlists. He has one playlist where you see him playing through for the first time through the game. And I must say, it is therapeutic to listen to someone get as frustrated as I get when I'm playing the game, because the game is so hard. It is one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. And it's just great to have that kind of shared misery together where you hear him yelling and cursing and everything else. And then he also has this other playlist, which is a 100% walkthrough. And it's where he's going back through it. So he's already a pro and like how to defeat everything. And he's just doing it so that people who are stuck, they can be able to go through. And I've been using quite a few of his videos just to kind of see how he handles certain situations, as well as finding certain secrets that maybe I missed, because I want to be able to get as much of a completion as I can as well. So he's a lot of fun, and he is on the ball. Like every new game that comes out, I mean, he starts posting a playlist of that particular game. It's honestly, we should probably do it. If we had more time on our hands, that'd be actually really cool for us to be able to do that too. The other guy is Tyrannicon. And he is so funny too, because he gets so mad. Like Fightin Cowboy, he gets mad in his own way, and he has a lot of funny things to say. Tyrannicon is more like the Angry Joe rage version, where, I mean, he is like screaming. He gets so mad at times, and rightfully so, because like, I mean, I completely understand watching him fight a boss that I've already beaten. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see how he's going to handle this. And like literally everything that he says that's in response to what's happening on screen went through my head too as I'm playing. I'm like, what is this? You know, just going through it. So maybe after the show, I'll play some little tidbits for you. But for those of you listening out there, if you love video games and perhaps you're stuck on one, maybe it's Sekiro, maybe it's another one, I would recommend you check these two guys out because they're really fun to listen to. They've got a lot of great helpful hints and tips and stuff as to how to get through a rough patch if you're having one. So it's a lot of fun. Back to what I was going to say. What came, I got something in the mail today, Steve.
Did you?
A little shipment of sorts. I'm going to bend over and show you. Just a minute. Don't worry. I'm not gonna moon you, Steve.
It's crack of dawn. I see.
Voila.
Oh man, I knew it.
The Sega Genesis Mini is in my hot little hand here. It is, I don't know, it brings back so much just to hold it and to see it like this. The packaging, of course, is done as the original packaging when the Sega Genesis came out. I believe in 1989 was the year it debuted. But yeah, 30th anniversary. This thing has over 40 games that you can see on the back here.
Shining Force 2? I know it comes with. I think it's called Strider.
Man, it is tough. There are so many back here. I'm not sure. I think I want to say.
I know. I remember exactly how the cover.
Oh
was.
yeah. There's Shining Force something over there in the corner. Yeah, you have to take a look at that. But it looks like. I mean, obviously there's Revenge of Shinobi, Sonic the Hedgehog. I think Road Rash is in there.
Road Rash is in there, yeah.
Toe Jam and Earl, Shining Force, Phantasy Star Online.
Altered Beast. Got Castlevania. So they have Shining Force 1, which definitely is not bad. They have Virtual Fighter 2 came out for the Genesis, or on the Genesis.
I guess so.
Man. They have Earthworm Jim.
That was a good one, too. I love that game.
I think, didn't you have that one back in the day?
Oh, yeah, Earthworm, yeah.
That's with Queen What's-Her-Face. Literally, that's her name, What's-Her-Face.
Yeah.
And I think they do have, was that Thunder? I can't
Thunder
read it.
Force?
It's
Yeah.
Thunder Force, but I don't know I think it's one or two.
I thought it was Thunder Force 3.
Okay, it could be 3. I'm trying to read it. So yeah, well, there's a lot of good ones on there. Yeah, so there's Strider right there too. That was a classic.
What's cool too is it comes with 2 controllers, which I think is great. And they're the classic controllers. I'm a bit conflicted in the sense that they are not the updated 6-button Genesis controllers. But you know what? We're going for original here. I mean, even the console itself, I'm so glad that they went with the original design, not the cheaper redesign that they came out with a bit later.
Right. This has Gunstar Heroes too. I remember
that was a great game.
I remember playing that with you back in the day. I wish they had some of the sequels though. Like Golden Axe was fun, but I played it to death. But I wish they had Golden Axe 2. I like Golden Axe 2.
I'm a fan of just the Golden Axe series. I think Streets of Rage is on here.
Yeah.
Also, okay, Echo the Dolphin, Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse. That one was awesome. That was a great game.
Castle of Illusion was actually pretty good graphics for Genesis.
They have Contra Hardcores, which is like, I mean, I think that was like probably one of the very few Contra games that actually made it to the Genesis because that was predominantly a Nintendo third-party title. Of course, you can't go wrong with comms. I played Beyond Oasis. That was another classic. Gosh, there's so much. Kid Chameleon. Even the Mega Man game. You know, that it was crazy that Capcom actually made a Mega Man game for the Genesis. Anyway, I have barely even had a chance to look at all this. Oh, Strider's on here too. So Streets of Rage.
That's right. I told you.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Man.
So much goodness. Now there is even Vector Man, which I never played, so I'm glad it's on here because I'd give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. Well, we don't have too much in the form of gaming news, but we do have a few little tidbits that I thought were worthy of sharing. The first one is just, it's so funny. Console controllers supported in Apple iOS 13. What I think is hilarious about this is last week our topic of the day was the Apple event 2019, and we were actually discussing at length about what we were wanting to see with the Apple Arcade that was really heavily promoted and announced. One of the things that I was talking about was how I really wanted to see some kind of device that allows gamers to be able to use a controller of their choice, like a universal controller. What's insane is that apparently they're doing just that. When you look at the iOS 13, which is slated to drop, I guess, later this month, apparently they are going to have universal compatibility, allowing gamers to be able to play with either an Xbox One controller or a PS4 controller. That right there, it makes me so excited and happy, because that is the one thing that has been holding me personally back from really playing a lot more mobile titles, simply because a lot of the games out there are just too frustrating to control due to the virtual interface. Does that make you excited, Steve?
You know, I just like keeping the experiences separate. You know, I have that. I have my Xbox controller, I have my PlayStation controller, and my mobile, I don't want it to feel like a PlayStation. You know, I just want to, I want to hold the phone in my hand and do what I got to do.
I think the key here is to make sure that developers continue developing games with gameplay mechanics that take advantage of the mobile platform. I don't want them to fall into this trap of thinking that everybody's just going to play their games using like a console controller. That's bad. Definitely keep it with the mobile gamers in mind and with how like you have virtual controls. However, having said that, there are tons of games out there, whether it's a racing game or an RPG. Maybe it's just an action game in general, a first-person shooter. I mean, like for instance, first-person shooter is a great example where you really can't control something like that very well using virtual controls. You need tactile, something that enables you to have twitch responses to things. This is a terrific approach to it. And I think one of the things that makes me so excited about it too is we are starting to see more and more of this happen, where it's not anymore about like, oh, our camp versus their camp. You know, we only play games with this controller and this system. We're starting to see more and more examples of this cross-platform functionality. That's a huge win for gaming. Just it doesn't matter who you are. Well, everybody loves options. It's like, what do you want to play with? You like PlayStation? Cool. Use a PS4 controller. You like Xbox? Cool. Use the Xbox One controller. Oh, you don't want to play Xbox games on the Xbox system? Not a problem. You can play your mobile games using an Xbox controller. Again, having all that fluidity in there is just terrific. Second item on the list here is that a game I'm particularly also looking forward to, Link's Awakening for Nintendo Switch, is out tomorrow. IGN gave it a 9.4 out of 10, and it's a big deal to me because I have never played any of the isometric top-down Zelda titles in the past, simply because I didn't really own any Nintendo systems. So I'm looking forward to this because it's a reimagining of a classic that came out, I think, in 1993, which actually that one was also a classic of one of the games that came out, I think, in the 80s. So it's clearly one of the more cherished Zelda games, if you can believe it, because I think probably each and every Zelda game is highly regarded because they're so well done. But anyway, thought I'd throw that in there because that's super cool. Finally, BioWare abandons Anthem post-launch plans. I was surprised to kind of see this. IGN was reporting on it. I honestly thought they had already abandoned it, but apparently they hadn't. Like, they actually still had stuff that was a part of their scope and roadmap. Well, they made it official that they are no longer going to be executing on any of those things.
Not even a year later.
I mean, that game came out this year. It came out like, what, February?
Yeah, I believe it was February.
That's insane. And apparently, like, the boss over there was talking about how they're still going to be, like, reevaluating and looking at, like, how they can make the game better. I personally think it's kind of a no-brainer, judging from, like, how the gaming community has been very upfront and being candid of just what needs to happen in terms of improving the game. I mean, to me, it's not a mystery. You need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. They'll probably make a second one and put everything into the game that they should have put in the first game and show it at E3 amongst a bunch of hisses and boos, and then they'll probably apologize and be like, but it's really going to be good this time, and then most people will probably pick it back up.
And it's crazy too how, like, that game was just, it had so much going for it in terms of,
Potential, yeah.
the hype and potential and people really wanting to play it. And even when we played it, the game itself, like the combat mechanics, I thought were fantastic. There was sound. It's just the game was too empty. It was unfinished. I do have one little story that is not so little in terms of its content. Apparently, there is a Princess Bride remake possibility. Steve, if you were given the decision to greenlight or nix a Princess Bride remake, what would you do?
I would flush that idea down the toilet. I think that is one movie that is perfect through and through. And to remake it, yeah, I think you'd be treading on thin ice.
Carrie Ells shares your sentiment, Steve.
Didn't he tweet about it? I meant to look up his feed on Twitter and see what he said, but I didn't get to it.
Carrie Ells tweeted a cryptic and clever response to news of Hollywood execs flirting with the idea of remaking the cherished film. Quote, "There's a shortage of perfect movies in this world.
Yes.
It would be a pity to damage this one." End
Oh
quote.
my goodness, that is such the perfect response.
It is indeed. I was applauding that. I was like, I could not believe it. That's so classy.
Man.
And definitely gets the point across.
If they were gonna do if they were gonna do something with The Princess Bride, they would do a sequel, but it would have to be the original screenwriters, cast, everything. And Andre the Giant's obviously not gonna be there, so that's not gonna be good. But
Well, then there's just certain titles that through the passage of time, just leave them alone. They were perfect for a reason. There's no reason to go back and say, oh, I want to do a reboot or I want to do a remake other than greed. It's like, don't get greedy. You need to leave those on the shelf. Leave them as they are because those caliber of films are so few and far between.
they don't even collect dust. They don't collect dust.
Just don't ruin my childhood. Don't ruin my childhood. Well, grab your Lancer and chainsaw some grubs. It's time for the topic of the day. Topic of the day is our Gears 5 impressions. So we have made our way, I would say, roughly?
We're in Act 2.
We're in Act 2, right. So 2/3 of the way through, I suppose, because I would say we're probably toward the end of Act 2. What do you think?
Is there only 4 acts, or how many acts are there?
I don't know. I wanted to say 3. A 1, a 2, a 3.
Because that would be very short if it was only 3 acts. Because I'm nearly done with this snow level, which would mean that if that's it, and there's only one more long sequence, because that's a long level. If there was only one more sequence, that'd be kind of, I don't know.
I'm completely and utterly wrong, Steve. I just looked it up. In total, there are 15 chapters in Gears 5 spread across 4 different acts. So there are, there are, I like how you, so I wasn't completely off. It's not 3 acts, there are 4 acts. So yeah, we're halfway through just about. Because I would say we're probably toward the end of Act 2.
Doesn't feel like we're halfway through the game though.
They are planning on doing several DLC drops over the course of the year with expanded story, I'm told.
Right.
Extra goodies and that sort of thing. So, what do you think of Gears 5 thus far? And I suppose we should preface this with saying that I'm more of a Gears of War fan than Steve is. Steve has not played most of the other Gears titles. However, for the sake of the show, and for him to be get a refresher to see where the game has come. Actually, he's really great to ask this question too, just because the last game he played was the original Gears of War, which came out quite a while ago. So I want to know.
I think I played that one, but I think I played 3 also.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what do you think of Gears 5?
So I like Gears 5. I would say out of the first and third Gear that I have played, I like the 5th Gear the most. It has what I was familiar with the other games, which is fine. Since I only watched you play Gears 4, and I didn't really care. I mean, from what I saw, it wasn't really awe-inspiring. I didn't really actually like the colors and the game, like the level design wasn't that. Anyway, I'm sure I'll probably take some flack for that, but I just watching it wasn't really very, very fun. The level design on this one was a lot better, a lot more color, and since the last time I played the game, there's been some more weapons that are now available, and of course some familiar faces, and some faces I miss. And but it's very similar, where you kind of tell where the action's going to be, and then the action's there, and the story is relatively shallow. But I'm definitely glad that I picked it up. I'm having fun with it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I have been having a lot of fun with it. Like I said earlier, I have always been a Gears of War fan. I don't know, like there's something about it that I just find fun. I've always loved the over-the-top mentality of Gears of War. I think it's what helps it stand head and shoulders above other competitors in terms of the first-person shooter genre. Not in the sense that it's necessarily better than the others, it's just different than the others. I think there's something to be said in terms of like how instead of it being first person, it's actually, well, technically it's a third-person shooter. And it's a lot of fun to be able to see the strides they've made with the game in all aspects, really. I mean, I think that you can tell that they have placed efforts in updating the gameplay, updating the graphics, updating the sounds, updating the level design. I mean, everything about it, just you could tell that they're wanting to consciously push things out of it from where they used to be. So I for one, really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this whole thing takes me. But let's break this down a little bit. Let's talk about the graphics. So, of course, they use the Unreal Engine, and that is hands down one of the best engines on the market in gaming. I mean, every iteration of that engine that comes out, I cannot believe what it is capable of. It's just amazing to me to see what developers are able to do with it. And I think, and this is no exception, when the Coalition obviously is kind of a branching off from Epic Games. I think that in some areas of the game, I think it's some of the best graphics I've seen on the Xbox One. When you look at like how the frame rate is like this nice, buttery 60 frames per second, and
you like 60 frames a second, do you?
I like it especially in my games. I do love me some 60 frames per second. Mm-hmm. I've heard if you have a high-end PC, you can play games at like 144 frames per second. I don't even know what that must be. I mean, that must be like supreme butter right there.
I don't care for butter too much, but when it's supreme butter, I pay for it on my popcorn.
Now, having said that, what is kind of weird is that there are certain areas of the world that don't look as good as the others. And I don't know if you've noticed that yourself or not, but like sometimes like I'll be going through just like just a general area, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, the graphics don't look as good here as they did just 2 seconds ago.
Right. It almost seemed like they storyboarded out some really good scenes, like someone draw where they were going to go and they went, yeah, that looks incredible. Let's put that in the game. And then they did. And then other points from where the first drawing was to the second drawing, they go, oh, we just need to kind of fill this up a little bit here. And then they that was the glue, I guess, to the two cool looking parts.
Yeah. I know too that they're trying to simulate subsurface scattering and indirect global illumination just to get more of a realistic look in terms of like the lighting and the shadows and stuff. But there were certain parts that had no shadow whatsoever to anything, and it just came across flat. So I don't know. It's a bit interesting to me. I do think it's worth mentioning that in terms of where we are thus far, I really do love more of the open areas. I think that is a new, I would say a new approach to the world of Gears, simply because Gears tend in the past, they kind of funnel you through this linear path. And,
Right.
You know, you go from point A to point B to point C, that sort of thing. And there's really not a whole lot of exploration, really. But in this game, they actually are taking more strides to that. I like that.
I do too. I had to remember how the other Gears played because I was finding myself thinking, this is like incredibly linear. I mean, I can't even like jump up on a log.
Right.
You know, but I can jump up on a step that's bigger than the log. What in the world is happening? And then you get on that skiff, and then you can go pretty much anywhere you want. And that's definitely really new, but very welcoming too.
The animations also, in terms of the facial animations, I'm really impressed, both obviously with more of the cinematics, but also in the in-game cinematics too. I really love just watching that occur. It doesn't have anything that's jarring or out of place. It matches up really well with the voiceovers. I'm trying to think. What else can I say about the animations? I will say is I think that some of the animations when it comes to the characters, like if they're doing the whole rodeo camera thing where they're like sprinting from one place to another, that seems to be kind of rinse and repeat for me throughout all of them.
True, yeah.
And I have kind of a conflicted viewpoint on that, just because on the one hand, like you want to be able to retain certain things in any given game that is the signature of that title. I do think that having the rodeo cam, for instance, that is one of the things that defines Gears of War. So I am glad that is there. I do wish there are certain things though, like I wish that you could jump in the game. I wish that there was just some way, like I know that they try and fake it when like you're in cover and you can kind of volley over like your cover and grab someone or something like that. That's not the same thing.
Right.
So it's a little frustrating when you're just like, golly, dude, like I don't want to have to like intentionally butt myself up against someone in cover and then jump over it. Like, no, I should just be able to jump over it.
Yeah, you can dive, but that's totally different.
Yeah. The storyline itself, again, we haven't beaten the game, so we are just now starting to come into some heavy exposition. I do like where they're taking it, simply because in the past, it was a very different direction with having over-the-top characters. They have like, you know, big muscles, big, larger-than-life personalities. And again, it fit the world and everything else. And there was, you know, enough there where it gave purpose to why we're playing this game in the first place. But you can tell in Gears 5, there is a very conscious effort placed in, like, let's really expand this out. Let's introduce new characters. Let's give more of a backstory of how the Locust came to be and that sort of thing. And so I appreciate that. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I can take it or leave it, to be honest.
It's not a deep story.
Yeah, no, it's not a deep story. And I do care what happens to the characters, but not enough to pay very, very close attention. Like in Halo, I was paying attention to everything. And I think they've actually probably drawn some elements between like Cortana and the Flood and with the main female protagonist in this one. But since the Flood is not intelligent, I think the game wants us to think they're intelligent because they can use our same weapons and they've invaded and are in previous games and whatnot. But I just don't see it. And so therefore it's hard for me to care that much. But I mean, that's not neither here nor there. I mean, it's not a game I think that you really want to dive deep into the story. I think you just play it because it's a rowdy shoot 'em up game, and there's plenty more to enjoy besides the story. The story is just there to push things along, to get you from level to level to level, to see the beauty, I guess, that they have now created. That's to me, far and above what the other games were. The other games seemed real dreary, kind of dry, not nearly as saturated.
Had that kind of
color.
Destroyed beauty look to everything. Again, that was kind of one of more of the calling cards of the game, which I personally thought was cool. What I think is interesting about the story component is that from a relational standpoint, I think that it is actually one of Gears' strengths, because you've always had chemistry among the main cast of characters. You know, if you had Marcus Phoenix with Baird and Cole and Carmine, you know, all those guys that existed in the original Gears of War games, it was just fun to listen to their banter. It was fun to see their relationships and how the dynamics worked between all of them. But that's very different than the actual exposition. You know, the storyline itself, there wasn't a whole lot there. It's like, oh, look, there's these scary monsters. You need to shoot them and kill them and try and survive, move on. You're being attacked. And that was kind of it. So it's nice in terms of, even with Gears 5, when they have these new characters coming in and you're seeing the relationships between the next generation and the older generation of cogs. I think that they succeed in that. And you can tell that they have placed a lot of emphasis on having these complex relationships, being able to showcase trust and betrayal and secret skeletons in the closet. And again, loving the kind of the camaraderie, brother, like, hey brother, you know, kind of thing. So I think that's a lot of fun.
I think the humor is better in this game than it was in
I've always liked all the humor in the various games. You know, Dom was another character. If you think about the story, you know, Dom was kind of I know you didn't play all of them, but his story was more grounded. Right. Like the other characters were kind of more like WWF style, WWE. But Dom was the character that everybody kind of rallied around because he had more of a sensitivity and realism to just what his situation was in terms of trying to find his wife and all that kind of stuff. Like that actually had gravity to it. And of course, in this particular title, we're looking at this female protagonist who we're still discovering what's going on, but apparently there is some sort of complicated past that is coming to fruition.
Yeah. I just thought with 4, it seemed like a lot of the humor was forced and a little bit awkward. And this one, it seems they lightened it up a little bit.
Okay.
So it feels more natural.
In terms of the gameplay, so I know we talked already a little bit about how it's still whack-a-mole. You know, you still have you pop up, you pop down, you pop up, you pop down. You try and shoot each other, you try to hammer each other. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Try and chainsaw each other.
And the chainsawing never gets old, in my opinion. I love being able to rev up my chainsaw and just go wreak havoc. There's something so satisfying about that.
I think they need to change that though, because they've had the same kind of animation. It seems like in all the games.
They've added more depending on like how you approach the
angle.
Yeah,
but I think I don't know. It seems all too familiar, and I want the familiarity, but I want there to be. Like, instead of just coming up and hitting B button to do it once, I want to do it to multiple enemies. You know?
True.
I just don't want to see that 5-second to 10-second animation and then another enemy comes up and starts hitting my health away. And then I got to go seek shelter so I can heal up and then go back out and try and do it again.
Maybe have some kind of like crowd control animation
or
where
combo,
like if you're able to get the drop on like say 3 enemies and they don't know you're there. Maybe different if they're facing you, because obviously you're not just going to stand there and let someone go through 3 of you like that.
Right.
But yeah, I could see that. I think that'd be fun. That'd make it a little more of a visual spectacle.
Or if you could just rev up that chainsaw, then I'll just spin around a bunch of times and just slice and dice a little bit of kind of a combo special move or something.
It is harder, I've noticed in this game, to be able to keep the chainsaw running. In previous Gears games, like when those, I can't remember what they're called, but like the wretches or whatever they are, when they come running, all those little dinky ones, I could hold down the chainsaw and just mow down one after another, no problem whatsoever. But in this one, after you get done mowing one down, somehow the chainsaw just stops, and you have to repress the button for them to ignite the chainsaw, and that leaves you open to attack. So then it can't, oftentimes it'll cancel your revving of the chainsaw because you're getting hit. One animation cancels out the other one.
You know what they probably did was they have the Lancers that are energy star efficient. And so after one rev, one kill, it just shuts off. Mm-hmm. Save energy consumption. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, we're all trying to be green in the world of Sarah.
It's the Prius Lancer.
Yes. I do like a lot of the new weapons, kind of like what you were talking about, having a new variety of weapons. I haven't even tried them all yet. I will say that there are certain ones that I kind of go to. You know, you can't go wrong with a Lancer, in my opinion. I love the Lancer. The bow casting, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like the trip bow or
the arc
trip
bow
caster or something like that.
Yeah.
Still really, really awesome. The long shot's great. The Gnasher is great.
I thought it was called the torque bow.
Maybe that's what it is. Torque bow. Yeah. So a lot of those, I mean, they were so well conceived when they originally came out with them. It's like, yeah, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep using it. So there are new ones though. And I'm guilty of not actually being as exploratory as I should. Have you tried any of the newer weapons?
Yeah, I've tried them.
I did try the snub. That one was pretty good.
The snub was okay. I like there's a revolver that you get in the game. I like
that one's been around for a while.
Has it really?
Yeah, it's the one that's like super powerful and
I like that one. I don't choose.
McCree would be approving of that gun.
Yeah. I like the Lancer GL, I think it's called. Okay. And then I also like the Retro Lancer. The regular Lancer, I'm just so with. I like the Talon though. Uh-huh. I think, is that a new one? That's a new one, right?
That one I think is new.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
And that's about it. Well, there's some heavier weapons that are pretty good. There's like this assault rifle looking gun that's doesn't have as good of a scope as the long shot, but you can zoom up pretty good on it. Mm-hmm. And if you get some good shots, it takes just very little time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But so I do have my favorites. I don't choose the Gnasher too much unless I know it's definitely going to be close quarters. It's available a lot.
Dude, the Gnasher is where it's at for close quarter combat. I mean,
right.
if you can just fire that off, and I mean, you're seeing chunks.
But I like the other shotgun where you pull the trigger and it shoots twice. The pow.
Yes. I can't remember what it's called. I think that one is a new weapon.
It's like an overkill or something.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I think you're right. That one's actually, I have used that one, and it takes a little while getting used to because I'm not used to like having the 2-shot thing.
Yeah.
I need to give that some more time.
You know, back to the animations for a second. I am a sucker for reload animations. I don't know why, don't ask me why, but I love the reload.
Of course, reloading, it's all about that. Especially, even though this is third person, first person, man, I'm all about seeing some creative approaches to how the weapon gets reloaded.
Right. Actually, the game Black for the PS1, I believe, that's probably the best reloads that I've seen. They were anyway. Sorry. So if you hit the perfect reload, at least with a Talon, it does look and sound very good because you hit it just right and she flings off the magazine and shoves the other one in there. I'm like, yes, let's go. But you don't see that too much with some of the other weapons. And I kind of wish there was a little more flash and pizzazz.
Another new gameplay element is Jack. They have leveraged the AI bot Jack to actually become playable. If you want to have someone co-op in with your game, whether it's multiplayer or within the story, you can play as Jack. And man, that's actually probably one of the highlights of the game, in my opinion, when you're playing through and seeing how you can constantly upgrade Jack with more components. And, you have control over like how you want him to be upgraded, when you want certain things to be activated and that sort of thing. It's probably one of the more deeper updates to the game itself.
Right. Yeah, I would have definitely expected them to have some sort of robot drone sort of thing in this day and that day and age. I mean, they're in the future for crying out loud. I would expect that. Although I would, one of my criticisms is the sound. Like I want to hear Jack hover, whatever kind of sound that is. I mean, he's always kind of having his jets going. He doesn't have any shortage of fuel. Mm-hmm. But I want to hear
solar powered, Steve.
Right, solar powered. Right, green solar. I want to hear him kind of hovering around or buzzing or making some sort of noise, but complete silence. I mean, I don't know. Makes me feel kind of lonely.
FY to the eye, they do have some kind of Gears 5 forum place where the developers want to hear feedback from the community. So you could sign in there and just let them know, say, hey, FYI, drop that in there.
I don't want to, moan about it. I just want to tell them like, hey, I'm enjoying your game, but if you could do this maybe in the next game, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, if you're on the title screen of Gears 5, when you press the menu button, it has a little tray that comes up. There's one of the things on there that explains where you can do that.
I'll have to take a peek.
In terms of the different types of gameplay mechanics they have incorporated into Jack, I love the fetch idea. I love the idea how, like, when you're behind cover and you're receiving all kinds of suppressive fire everywhere and you're not able to get ammo or a particular weapon or something like that, you can have Jack go fetch it for you. I love that. I think that's a great addition to a game like this.
You know what's a little off though is Jack knows exactly what to do. Sometimes without even you saying anything. Same can't be said with Dell.
Dude, you got to get a Dell.
So there's a part where I'm with this baddie, and Dell recognizes a weak spot, and I think, well, thank you for being Captain Obvious. And then there's a part where you can make the creature, stumble a little bit, so you can hit the weak spot. Mm-hmm. Dell doesn't shoot the weak spot.
Of course not. He wants you to shoot the weak spot.
He'll shoot everywhere. Thank goodness he has unlimited ammo because he shoots everywhere else except for the spot that he acknowledged was weak. Like, Dell, just go away. You're not like, he doesn't help whatsoever.
Good old Dell.
Ever. I mean, if anything, he's like a distraction for the enemies to run after.
One good thing that he's good at is healing you. I've noticed that for the more often than not, if I'm down crawling and I need help, he'll run over and help me out. That is the one thing that I can count on Dell for, but everything else, forget it.
Yeah, that's actually kind of true. Although Jack does it too, which that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. He does, yeah. And I think you have to unlock that particular ability. But once you do, yeah, I mean, it's right there. And going back to Jack, I mean, I love how you can go to a menu screen that it shows you what you can unlock and what you've already unlocked. And I love how it's very well organized. The UI, actually, we haven't talked too much about the UI. The UI in this game is clean. Let me tell you, from the main menus to the HUD to the pause menus to the maps, the overhead maps and even the multiplayer setups. Everything is super easy to navigate and digest, and it's done so with just a lovely amount of polish. So kudos to the UI design team who has put a lot of TLC into this. Which is saying something because actually, like, all departments should be really happy with this product. I think, if I were to provide concluding thoughts on the game so far, obviously we haven't beaten the game, but what I've seen, I mean, it has such high production value in a lot of different areas. I will say, in terms of the actual gameplay combat, it does start to feel a little dated just because they're rehashing the tried and true whack-a-mole mechanics and stuff. And I don't want them to do away with that, but I want to see more just
elements.
Yeah, kind of more novel approaches to, like, okay, what else can you do with your character? And they, to a certain extent, they are doing that. Like with the wide open areas, for instance. Love it. I love how, like, they have certain vehicles that you can just take out, like the skiff. Wonderful idea. I think that there needs to be more of that. I think they need to take kind of a nod from Halo and really incorporate more vehicles in the game. Right. I mean, who wouldn't want to see a bunch of cogs get into some vehicles and lay waste? I mean, you're already in third-person perspective.
Right.
When you're playing Halo and you're playing Master Chief, you get into a Warthog or a Banshee or a Ghost or a Scorpion tank. It doesn't matter. There's all kinds of different types of vehicles in the game. I would love to see that happen in Gears.
You can kind of see if they took like some Polaris or Can-Am, off-road dune buggy, but made it look Gears.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fit.
And people are going to say, like, oh, well, they've done that here and there in the past games. Yeah, I know. I know in Gears 4, you ride a motorcycle, but that's not that's not the same thing. That's you're on rails and it's more of a roller coaster survival ride kind of thing. I want there to be free reign, kind of like what Halo does, where you're driving through these environments. You have these, we'll just call them altercations with the Locust and any other kind of enemy. And really, that's one of the other things I think of too, is we've seen the Locust in several games of Gears now. And I'm wondering, are they going to just stick with the Locust, or are we going to be introduced to new enemies in sequels?
Right. I mean, on the 5th game, you would think they would change that up a little bit.
Other than that, though, I'm having a blast playing it. It is a really easy game to get into and start playing. It's super fun when you're playing with friends. And I, for one, am looking forward to seeing how this game ends up in terms of the story and stuff. And I look forward to actually playing more of the multiplayer maps with you and some of our friends who I know who've bought it as well. What are your concluding thoughts?
Actually, I'm right there with you, Russ. Everything you're laying down, I'm picking back up. I just hope they increase the sound. I want, you have little things like on your suit, little like fans or jets or something, maybe that make you run. I want to hear more clunking, hard stepping. It made me think of Red Dead when you, depending on the surface that you walked on, it would make completely different sounds. And this one, you don't hear much of that. If you're walking on metal or wood or grass or snow, there's kind of something there is somewhat of a difference. It's just not very noticeable. Same thing with the weapons. I really want to feel that kick. And when you're firing high grade military,
sure.
I mean, I really want to.
And I know you listen to the games you play very loudly.
Yes, I do. And when we Twitch, you can just turn your TV down.
I got this covered.
Yeah. So, but that is pretty much my literally like my only. I'm not even gonna say it's a gripe because the sounds are not bad. I just want them amplified. What's already there. I want them to come and slap me in the face. But other than that, I'm having a wonderful time with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at the end and how they're maybe going to leave some knots untied for the next Gears.
Indeed.
So the next cog in the machine.
Yes. That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm and consider becoming a monthly contributor. Oh, so you'll get early access to the show, and it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. Last but not least, search Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We will see you all next week.